Well, thank you very much for staying. We get into our big stories now and a number of matters we're going to be discussing. But topical among them, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin says setting up the office of the Special Prosecutor was an act in futility. He has shared his thoughts on that matter. We'll also be looking at Parliament and some of the latest arrangements as far as that institution is concerned. There has also been some discussion on the appropriate punishments for persons who engage in LGBTQ sex as the House continues the consideration of the controversial bill. There has been talk on the floor of Parliament about be careful, because with these things, it could easily lead into, when you talk about unnatural carnal knowledge and all of that, how about married couples and all that, heterosexual couples, that is. We'll be getting into all those discussions this morning on the show. Our guests, Alhassan Suhuyini, his Member of Parliament for Tamale North, and we also have Collins Adomako Mensah, MP Efija-Kwabre North, both of them from constituencies in the north. North, that's what I mean, not from the northern belt of our country. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Morning, man.
Thank you for joining us on the show. I have a special liking for both of you and how you discuss matters. So I'm hoping that today we shall keep it crisp and nice and no giddy giddy. I'll try to be a fair arbiter all through. And I shouldn't make it controversial. Right. You know that person who said that. Yeah. Oh, you have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech. I can't guarantee I know, that. Right? I will not be a little mischievous. It's all part of it. But gentlemen, let's start from your constituencies. I'll start with you, Collins. Yeah. I always like to know what is going on in the constituency. What's the latest from Efija-Kwabre North? What's happening there?
Primaries.
Okay. I knew you would mention. I would have been surprised if you hadn't mentioned that.
January 27th. So the campaign mode has just started.
In full swing, eh?
Full swing. I have two other people who have decided to contest with me. And so that, of course, is the beauty of democracy. I came in through a contest. So I don't have much problem with that.
You don't have a problem being contested?
Not at all. And so nominations will be opened on the 20th and then closes on the 25th, which is the Christmas day. And from there we have our vetting, and then we proceed to have our elections on the 27th. And so yes, activities at the constituency is heating up for January elections. But this Friday I have a program. Education has been very, very paramount on my agenda. And for the first time, we're having our Teachers Awards, sponsoring the Teachers Awards in collaboration with the District Education Directorate. And so this Friday, we are going to award our teachers and to thank them for the efforts they've put in all these years. You know, we come from a rural area, and to have teachers dedicated to come to those areas to teach our kids, we just have to appreciate their efforts. Yeah. So this Friday, hopefully, we'll have a beautiful program. We have confirmation from the Deputy Minister of Education to grace the occasion for us in Team Fojo. And in collaboration with the District Chief Executive, we'll be awarding our teachers. And so that is the activity for the weekend. Of course, funerals are standard procedures in our areas. And so we'll take our time to spend the weekend in the constituency to attend to social gatherings. The regional youth of our party, MPP, is also organizing the youth conference on Saturday.
Right.
I'm one of the invited guests because of my age, obviously. So we'll pass through on Saturday and then go back to the constituency to be with the constituents. So basically that's what is happening within the constituency. But it's very peaceful.
Okay.
We don't have too much problem. Of course, the last time I was here, we talked about roads. I have one major road that is still a concern to me. I'm getting some positive feedback. I hope that early next year, the contractors will come back to site.
I'll come back to you briefly on something. I don't want to hint at it yet. But how about your constituency, Tamale North? What's Tamale North like?
It's good. Alhamdulillah, we'll say. And let me say good morning to our viewers, especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. I returned from the constituency only yesterday.
Okay. So you have the latest of news to share with us.
Yes, so I spent the whole of the weekend there. engaging with constituents and also inspecting a number of projects that we have been undertaking with the support of NGOs especially, and some also central government. So we, over the weekend, this week, that Sunday, we, together with my constituencies, I went round to visit an ongoing construction of a drain around 4, and this drain, it's a bridge actually, but it's a bridge done on a very big storm drain. Now, we are not able to do the storm drain yet, but with the necessary interventions, we have been successful at getting it awarded to a contractor to just, for now, construct the culverts that will create a bridge, because the drain separates two very important communities, for and then Kwabelamahago, as we call it. And sometimes for people to access services around the 4 area, they have to go all the way to central town before they come back to 4, and vice versa. So that is a very important bridge. We also have a similar one that is to link between Kalpohini and Paumo, which is also underway. So we went to inspect that as well. With the help of Qatar Charity, a non-governmental organization, we are also putting up a clinic together with nurses' quarters and a borehole, a mechanized borehole at Chogu, in the Chogu electoral area. So we went to inspect the progress of work also there. There's also the call on, by many communities for the extension of electricity. My constituency is largely 100% covered by electricity, but you have new settlements coming up every now and then. And so when those new settlements spring up, you need to extend electricity to those areas. And sometimes the pressure when they do their own connections on the transformers that were initially stationed in those areas become burdened. And so with some negotiations and engagements, we are replacing a number of the transformers in the Boile, Taha areas. And so I went to inspect that as well. So a number of activities happening in the constituency. And only yesterday, I engaged with a very progressive non-governmental organization also in the area of education, known as Lively Minds. And I was amazed at what I saw. I was invited to be the ambassador, and I decided that before accepting to be the ambassador, there was a need for me to go to the field to find out what they have been doing. And they have this concept of teaching at the KG level, which has been adopted now by the GES as part of the curriculum. And I was amazed at how they get mothers in the community 10 a day to be part of the teaching process of the KG kids. Teaching through activities, through games, and through natural, using the natural surrounding to teach these kids. Using L1 to L2. Amazing job that they have been doing. And they are in about 6 regions of Ghana now, and covering many districts in the country, and the intention is to roll it out throughout the whole country. And I am proud to be associated with their activities. I was amazed at the good work that they are doing to build the foundation of these kids.
Definitely something to
education,
to salute in that regard, because we know there are areas too where recently we highlighted one of these stories about MTN putting up some schools in some part of the country. I've forgotten exactly where, a rural community. The schools were so bad, no one wanted to go to school. Now, MTN went and put up facilities there, and the population has grown about 3-4-fold. In fact, now some schools, other schools in the area, their headmasters are complaining to the headmaster of that school because all the students want to come to
the new school.
The new school. So it's pathetic. On the other hand, our latest installment of Ghana Schools of Shame, I think Christ the Answer RC Basic School in is it Mepe? I have to check. And then Mepe, and you look at the structure, you wouldn't want even your worst enemy to be there. So it's part of the puzzle, and the story about schools and the trees and all of that. I'm not saying it's a current issue, that it's been with us for a long time. We really need to look at those. But coming back to you briefly, I want to very briefly on this. We've had your orphan constituency primaries, okay? It was pretty interesting, but we also noticed the influence of money in politics. Yesterday over here, and that's an issue that I'll come back to you with, district level elections. I had a presiding member together with an analyst of the system tell me that, listen, you know what? Let's go political on it because it's politics anyway. It's NDC, NPP. It's going on. Let's go that way just to sanitize it and maybe for better development. But the influence. I remember, I think Secheduma say, and somewhere, one of the constituencies in the Greater Accra region, I mean, open people with envelopes with the names of the candidates on them. We captured those. And now the OSP, you may have seen that the OSP started following some of them. One didn't have names on it. They set up tents feeding the people. I mean, when are we going to? I don't know. But when the NDC also had theirs, you remember, it was so sad for me because you remember the lady who was spraying money out of her, and her excuse, oh, she found money in her car. I don't know whether her car is a bank. And she was, when are we going to stop this? Because in the end, it sows the seed of corruption right from the start. So when you get in, you want to recoup. You want to... What do you feel about these? Very quickly on that.
Suhuyini, he took the ring. This is exactly what we were discussing.
Conversation we were having.
Okay, which I didn't even know.
Yes, the conversation we were just having off air before we came. And it's I mean, the number of requests I've received from candidates contesting for this assembly elections, you'll be amazed. Yeah. You'll be surprised. I mean, I get calls every day, and interestingly, our election is in January.
Yeah.
And you have some of our delegates contesting
now. And they are basically telling you,
they are basically telling you
that you scratch my back now,
telling you that
I scratch your back later.
Yeah, but next week Tuesday, and yours is a month from there. So, my brother, it's a very difficult situation. And I think both political parties must sit and have a very, very frank discussion on the way forward for this, our politics. I fear sometimes that it is just not sustainable. It will get to a stage, if we are not careful, the caliber of people who will get to parliament. Yeah. If you don't have money, no matter your intellectual capacity or anything, you can't enter parliament. It's
about the highest bidder or the one who has someone with deep pockets who can sponsor him or her. That's it.
That's it.
Bottom line.
Bottom line. If you are not careful, we get to a stage, that is where we have to head to. I have my election in January, and I don't even want to discuss how I intend to prosecute that election in a month's time. I mean, I spoke to some few elderly people, when one screamed at me, how can you be asking this kind of money? Why? What are you going to use it for? And I'm like, oh, it's for elections, I have to. He said, no. He just could not understand.
He couldn't
understand why.
Yesterday when I spoke to the presiding member, I asked him, look, we've seen figures in the past about MPs, how much you need to even win your primaries, how much you need when you are the candidate, how much you need as a president and all of that. How about at this level, the local level? He said, Charlie, you don't need anything less than 50,000 Ghana cedis. And they too will have to go around doing the same thing.
And even nowadays, I've been watching your program. The delegates are bold to display the envelopes that have been given to them to the media.
That was exactly what I was saying. I think that it was the guy in Secheduma or one of those who said, no cash, no vote.
We are getting to a stage where the issue of corruption is now, it's become normal. I mean, give me money, I vote for you. And delegates, I watched one, that they could upon one of the areas, and he was just indicating, way free. Some of the delegates, some of the candidates went even further to print their names
on the envelope
to indicate that this particular envelope is coming from me.
When the party had said that it was providing TNT and they had to do nothing, warned them against it. They still went ahead with it.
So it's a big problem, and it's good that we're having a discussion about it. I get worried as a politician. Of course, at my age, I get worried. How much am I supposed to pay in the next 4 years? If I'm still in the game, in the next 8 years, how much am I supposed to gather to come back to Parliament. So it's a discussion that I think we must. I've heard a lot of civil society groups have talked about it. I think the political parties themselves must have a very strong punishment or sanctions to candidates who go that way. But my brother, it's a difficult area.
I know.
Very difficult.
I don't envy you guys.
Very
Honestly,
difficult.
I don't. Chief, you're also in the same soup. How hot is the soup?
The soup is as hot as the country is. And sometimes I think that it is important that we are having these discussions, but I think that we do not make the conversations deep enough.
Okay. Let's get incisive then.
Yes, I think that we all know what the problem is, but we pretend about it. First of all, in discussing this topic, I have always said that there's a need for us to all agree and establish the point that every campaign of whatever nature or form is expensive to carry out.
Right.
Whether it's a media campaign, a media house, engaging or embarking on a campaign of whatever nature, it's going to cost that media house. You have to raise sponsors. I mean, if you, for example, decide that you are waging a war against Galamsey as a media house, you want to highlight it, it's going to cost you. Yeah. Whether it's a church that is organizing a campaign, be it a Watch Night service, or a crusade,
service,
yes, or a crusade, right. Whatever it is, it's going to cost you.
Right.
So every campaign, whether it's a corporate entity that is introducing a new product,
that is fair.
Yeah. So
it gets into politics.
I'm getting there. So I'm saying we need to first of all establish that campaign of every nature cost money. Now, when we establish that, then we get into politics and we ask ourselves, how much is too much when you are prosecuting a political campaign? So when we find an answer to that question of how much is too much, then we can begin to legislate, possibly, and also, provide transparent ways of raising the funds, reporting the usage of the funds, and that, for me, is how to deal with the corruption or the possible corruption associated with political campaigns. But if we just have the conversation and leave it to people who are in the enterprise, we will be practical like parents are, like teachers are. Because today, why is there that struggle between GEs and teachers and parents? My ward is in school. My ward is not well fed. The school is not supposed to charge. The head teacher knows that. But the head teacher cannot watch the children's stuff. I cannot, as a parent, imagine that my child is not well fed.
Right.
So we become practical. And then when we are practical, we are told we are breaking regulations.
You are indicted for it.
You are indicted for it. So it's the same thing. I'm a politician. I'm into politics to do good. But for me to remain in a position where I can actually do good, the demands...
You must actually do some bad.
Are you getting the point?
Remain good, you must do some bad.
So you need to understand that people who are in that establishment are also being practical. It's just like to keep my child being fed well, or to also, as a head teacher, make sure that the children under my care do not starve. I have to do some good by asking parents to pay when I'm told not to let them pay. So it's the same thing, the same situation that politicians find themselves in. So I am here. I am a member of parliament. For me to get re-elected, there are certain things I have to do because it is expected of me. Are you getting it? Sometimes you don't go making those offers. In fact, it's a headache to go around and raise some of these funds for some of these projects. But trust me, I just told you the number of projects that I went round to inspect. If you add it to the other projects that have already been executed in the constituency, all aimed at public service, I can bet you that it will contribute only about 30 to 40% of the reasons why people will re-elect me.
That's right.
It will contribute only about 30 to 40%. What will be more important is the personal gains, the personal benefits. For example,
And
this
we're
weekend,
talking of money.
Exactly.
It boils down
this weekend,
to money.
This weekend,
that you hand over.
As part of my common fund, I was able to assist tertiary students with about 90,000 Ghana cedis for their fees. But trust me, I still had to, at some point, run away from the constituency because after the 90,000, that was used to support people who applied, about 120 students. The pressure rather increased.
Yeah. Oh, MP Yazo, it means goody day. So you are dropping 90,000 somewhere. It means money day.
Exactly. And you have to strike that balance of ensuring that you utilize that little fund that comes to you for the infrastructural needs of the community and the personal needs of the community. But when we determine how much is too much in prosecuting a political campaign and institute transparent ways of reporting fundraising and also reporting utilization of funds raised, I think we'll be making steps towards checking.
You have said something
corruption
in the mode of a solution.
Yeah.
I'll come to you. Like I said, he's made my little house come out.
Yeah.
That it means MP Yazo, Kudi Yazo. It means MP has come, money has come. That is the mentality. How then do we get ourselves out of this mess? Do you have any practical solutions? You sit there, I find it repugnant, the sums of money that per different reports an MP needs. MPO, you want to serve your constituents. You need how many hundreds of thousands, even into the millions?
Millions.
When it comes to the presidency, don't even talk about it. You're talking many millions of dollars. You're talking about 100 million plus Ghana cedis and all of that. I mean, how do you expect someone, I want to come and serve you and I have to? I can't do that. I don't even, if I had those resources, I would invest them in something else.
Let me tell you a funny story. When the NDC had their presidential primaries, I was on the sets, and at the time, His Excellency had paid 40 cedis, GM. Then I multiplied the 40 cedis by
the number of delegates.
And I was on TV. Hey, GM, how can you get 15 million to do this? And it goes to our 10.
And then you were like,
the gentleman had a debate with called me. He said, Collins.
Yeah.
Hey! It's you see, my wife is a very calm person. She's not too much into the politics. So she normally does not follow me around. Last Christmas, I went with her and the family. And then anytime I enter the room, I come and pick some and then go back. One time I entered, it was like, Collins, this thing you guys are doing, I'm not too sure it's sustainable. Yeah. It's and you see,
many of us
Suhuyini made,
support this.
yes, Suhuyini made a very interesting point. I have become a member of parliament for 3 years. Yeah. In all honesty, I think I've served them well. I think I've brought some development within these 3 years. And my hope was that they were going to base my re-election on the contribution that I've brought to the constituency within these 3 years. I go to delegates, I give them a call, they speak to me nicely, and then I get a call from someone. She has just forgotten that I just commissioned a 16-seater ultra-modern toilet facility in her area.
Yeah.
That she's been crying for all these years.
Yeah.
She's just forgotten about it. She's just forgotten that I paid personally to get a grader to level her road for her to have a smooth passage. She's just forgotten that.
Yeah.
She's thinking about what I'm going to give to her
she's
personally.
thinking, I know it's for the community.
Personally.
How about my individual one?
That is my job.
Yeah.
My job is to go to government and lobby for these things to happen.
Even those things technically are not your work.
That's the
technically.
Yeah.
They are not even your work.
But the point
But
of
you're
lobby.
going ahead
Lobby.
to
Lobby
do it.
for it.
To lobby for
we
it.
all do that.
Yes, and we all
it's
do
part
that.
of the job too.
And my hope was that they were going to look at that to give me another chance to serve. But no, somebody is telling me, and they say it now without even fear. Yeah. They say it freely, yes, without shame. They tell you that, why are they mum now? They say it. They say it. So I like the issue of legislation. And the Electoral Commission, I think their laws gives political parties to report back on their finances and all that. Maybe we should try and strengthen that arm, because you could see clearly that what is happening clearly it's not sustainable. We might get to a
political
stage.
party funding, and maybe should we? I have noticed, looking at laws and as a student of the law, looking at laws across the world, sometimes the only way to get people to fall in line is to twist their arm, legally speaking. You fall foul, we deal with you, and then over time, just like in Singapore, Singapore was pretty much like how we are now. Over time, hey, you can't spit around the street. You can't do this. You can. Then you have a reorientation. Then the generation that comes after your generation comes to meet that is their way of life, and then you have closed the old chapter. It's a new page. Okay. Do we get stiff and say, you know what? So the law now is, and of course, the other side of the conversation is those who also want to take. They are a major part, because if there is no demand, there will be no supply. Whether you are giving or taking, no matter who you are, you can even be the president or the former president or whatever. We catch you involved in X, Y, Z. That is it. You are in the cooler. And we'll do, I don't know, but else I don't see how this is ever going to stop. What do we do?
Well, I mean, you talk about the law. The laws are there. You are just asking that we activate the laws and punish people for wrongdoing. The laws are there. The Electoral Commission says every political party must report back on their finances every year. And maybe you could check from the Electoral Commission and see whether even the major political parties, whether we are complying with this directive.
I want us to move away from this. Quickly, what do we do? Actuals.
For me,
what do we do?
For me, I think that the difference between our system and systems that are considered to be working, especially maybe democracies that are older than ours, is the transparency. Transparency. Look, elsewhere, campaign fundraising is even used to determine the popularity of a candidate. So how much a candidate is able to raise for his campaign or her campaign is not an issue. It's actually a positive issue. That's why Barack Obama then was considered a very credible candidate, because of how much his campaign team was able to raise.
Transparently.
So that's why I said, the difference, I started by saying the difference between our system and systems that work is the issue of transparency. So first of all, we need to ensure that people, the institution is there for transparent reporting of how funds are raised and how funds are utilized. So that it will not be an issue if a politician A is able to raise millions of cedis for his or her campaign. The system should be there for us to know how and where he or she is raising it from. And then the utilization. The reporting system should also be there. And where there's an infringement, the punishment should be spelled out. For example, you can be disqualified from the race when you are found culpable of any infringements. So we just need laws that govern campaign fundraising, reporting utilization of those funds. And with that, we can begin to work on the minds of people to understand that yes, we can raise funds to prosecute campaigns, but when we raise the funds, this is the way we are supposed to utilize it. And when we don't utilize it in that manner, we will be disqualified. And so if you think I'm a good candidate, but my inability to pay you money, will make you not vote for me, you will be the loser in the end. So we need those transparent systems, in my view. It is the only way to bring our system up at the same level with systems that
both the NDC, both the NDC and the MPP. These laws have been on our books, but you've not been able to actualize them.
No, the laws.
I know the political party funding situation when you read the Constitution, among other documents. They are not. They don't suffice. They are not exhaustive enough. But even what is there, we are not abiding by.
No, I do know, and it's also because the laws are not exhaustive enough. I am very certain that the two political parties, the major ones, the NPP and the NDC, have consistently reported their financials, to the Electoral Commission. But the question is, after they report, then what? Who audits it? And what are sanctions what sanctions are applied if there are any infringements. You know, so it is the law in its current form is not exhaustive enough, and that law doesn't even extend to members of parliament,
right.
assembly members, presiding members, how they prosecute their campaigns. We need to get the laws that will make all the processes very transparent at all levels, even institutional elections.
Right.
I mean, where the systems work, even when you have union elections, the laws will work there. The way you raise funds and the way you utilize the funds, there should be a reporting system. And when any anomaly is detected, there must be sanctions to be applied. And that's, for me, is the way we can deal with this possible corruption and abuse when it comes to political campaigning.
We have a representative of the MPP, a representative of the NDC. This is what they are saying. What is left is actually what happens in between to whip everybody in line. I'm sure you're as tired as I am of this situation, but how do we handle it? That's the situation. But let me come to Collins. I want us to go to Parliament now. Two crucial issues. In fact, both of them we're going to contemplate from the standpoint of the Speaker. Even before we contemplate the bill on proper human sexual values, while that was being discussed, something else came up. The Office of the Special Prosecutor. And the Speaker said, you know what, this whole thing, the policy, the framework, the act has been an act in futility. And quoting him, he says, as for the law you passed on the Office of the Special Prosecutor, I did tell you that it was an act in futility. I maintained that you were not going to achieve anything with that, but you went ahead and passed it. I disagreed with you, but I was alone. In many places, you would have the ombudsman, different, things to shape up accountability. We decided we needed a special prosecutor. Collins, with what has happened, the challenges, the rants, if you like, by both of them, both Martin Amidu and now Kisia Jabeng, is the Speaker right in this assessment?
Well, I don't have any problem with having an independent person leading a corruption fight. Prior to that, we've had issues about the Attorney General being an appointee of the government. And people felt that he, as an Attorney General, was not independent enough to prosecute his own. When I say his own government or his appointor.
And I agree with that standpoint.
Yes. So others had argued.
Not just for this administration,
yes.
Throughout this for them.
Yes.
I agree with it 100%.
Yes. Others had argued that there's an Attorney General and Minister of Justice. So why don't you have an Attorney General separate from a Minister of Justice?
Right.
Then the Attorney General becomes the lead legal advisor to the government.
To government.
And you have the Justice Minister dealing with corruption independently. And I'm sure because we were unable to decouple the two, that's how come the issue of an independent OSP came in. Now, this particular OSP, I watched his interview, his press conference the other time. When you talk about the challenges, what are the challenges? The stumbling blocks from who? From governments? From government officials? Or from who? What is his problem? I just want to understand.
He says the courts are dismissive of the petitions,
So when you go to
what he takes to them, that they are sort of impinging on his rights, his powers. And that is where even it becomes problematic, because some would also say that there's already an overlap of powers between the Attorney General hold on, you've asked the question.
Yes.
And the OSP, it makes matters very difficult for him. Then you would have, sometimes, he's dealing with an issue, government officials pass certain comments on what is happening, and then later certain things happen, and then you ask yourself, wait, who's really in charge here?
No,
those are some of the things that he's complaining,
no.
even apart from the logistical constraints and everything.
Yes, I've not heard him talk about
Logistical constraints.
I've not heard him talk about it.
He's had a litany of things he's complained about
Logistics.
in the past. In fact, have you forgotten for how many months after taking office he hadn't been paid? His officials hadn't been paid. They didn't have money to make certain recruitments. Let's not go there. That one is already.
No.
It's
when I listen,
it's a without which not.
No. When I listened to him the last time he had a press conference, I did not hear him talk about.
The fact that he doesn't talk about it again doesn't mean.
I can only,
some things have been sorted out.
I can only
That doesn't
debate
mean.
what he brings out. What are his stumbling blocks? He asked for an office, it has been provided. He asked for logistics. As far as I'm concerned, that has been provided. His budget has been given. What he complained about during his press conference was what happens in court. What happens in court has nothing to do with government.
Oh, it doesn't, huh?
If you go to court, the nature or the rule of the game in court are facts. If you go there and you present a set of facts, and a counterparty also presents another set of facts,
right,
and you lose a case in court, for me that cannot be stumbling block.
I'm a student of the law, and
Yes.
I know that
So
the law can be appreciated from. That is why you can have
But that is
dissenting
what,
views.
no, yeah, I don't have a problem.
Orbiters
And that is
in-
why
in
when
different
he goes
rulings.
when he goes to the High Court and he loses, he has an opportunity to go to the appeals court.
Yeah.
Yes, he shouldn't be complaining that
Right.
he went to court and he's been frustrated in court. What is the frustration in court? I am happy that on the part of government, the government that created this institution called the OSP, my understanding is that, and the information I have is that all the things he needs to make his work operational and smooth has been provided.
Has he been effective? Is the office serving its purpose?
I think he's brought some do I use the word fear? He's brought some excitement into the whole corruption fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he's bold to.
What has it amounted to?
I'm coming. He's bold to even. He's prosecuting a certain cabinet minister.
Yeah.
That has led to.
All the prosecutions he's made, what have they led to?
But that is not me. That's not for me to judge. That is not the fault of government. The government has provided all the logistics for you to prosecute, to do your job. So when you go to court and it has not led to, all your prosecutions have not led to something else, you don't blame government.
Right.
Or you cannot blame the appointor or the one who created the institution.
And you cannot blame his effectiveness and efficiency either, can you?
But then that goes to him. If you want us to discuss his effectiveness, we can do that. I see him as a nice gentleman, very knowledgeable. We all know Kisei Jabin, who has gone through the mill, in the legal fraternity, very respected. And I think he's doing a good job. I just hope that he should just concentrate on his job and do his job as he has been mandated to. If there are any specific reasons why he thinks that government, especially government, is stampeding his process, he should make it public for us to have a dispassionate discussion about it. But what I heard him say, he never accused government of not providing all the things that he needs to execute his job. He complained about the court system. If that is the case, then if you go to High Court, there's a problem. My appeal to him is to move to the appeals court, unless there's something going on in court specifically that he wants us to discuss.
If you listened to the OSP,
Yes.
you would have deduced that he felt. I mean, when he says the courts are dismissive towards his cases, that the rhetoric. I mean, you have to read between the lines. It's not for anyone to tell you.
So he's
You have to
saying
read
that
between
when he
the
went to court, a judge was supposed to adjudicate in a certain way. And on the basis of the judge being biased, so the judge decided to go another way. Is that what he's saying?
Well, like I said, read between the lines.
So-
I will not determine.
No,
for
is
him,
that
but,
your reading of
But
the-
read.
so is that your reading of-
You read between the lines.
No,
you can
my-
go and listen to
my
him. You
point
say you
is-
listened to him, and I'm saying
But
you
my
read
point is
between
that
the lines.
I was happy he did not accuse government. I would have been very worried
Right.
if he had said that the government that appointed or created that institution, he requested for an office has not been given. He requested for staff has not been given. His people have not been
But
paid.
what
Then that becomes a problem.
What essentially is government?
I mean, government,
The executive,
the
the legislature, the judiciary
No,
are
I'm
all
talking about the
government.
executive. But we don't have control over the judiciary.
You don't?
We don't.
I see.
When you go to court, when OSP goes to court, are you telling me that somebody from the executive will call a judge and tell the judge that the OSP is coming? I don't like what he's doing. So if it is A, please make sure it goes to B. Is that what you're saying?
Let me put this back to you. Are you also saying that in the course of this republic, we haven't had decisions that have smacked of, and I'm very careful choosing my words carefully because the justicial system, the judicial system is what it is. But we've also had the exposés that have exposed how people take
But I'm saying
fowls and goats and
there are certain
plantain
judgments.
and yam.
There are certain judgments.
You know.
You are a student of law.
do certain things.
You are a
So-
student of law. When you go to the High Court and you lose a case and you appeal it, that appeal in itself is a critique of the earlier judgment.
Right.
So I, as a person, I have read some judgment that I felt should go a certain way. I shouldn't be complaining.
You should go to the next.
The same constitution has given you a route
Right.
to cure that mischief.
Okay.
If you feel so.
That is a fair point.
Yes.
Let me come to Suhuyini. The OSP, we expend money. We've been expending money, taxpayers' resources to keep it running. Is it living up to expectation? Do you agree with the speaker who says it's an act in futility? I listened. I've also read something from Martin Kwebu, a lawyer, who says no, it is not an act in futility. Where do you stand on this?
Well, Uncle Dramani in UK is watching us and he's enjoying it. Let me just say good morning to him. He's enjoying the discussion.
Which Dramani, Dr. Rashid, or which one?
No, he lives in the UK and West.
Okay, right.
He's from Bali. You know, what the speaker said is a rehash of the debates that took place before even the bill to set up the OSP was passed. And you can understand the point that the speaker is making based on how consistent he's always been on issues that he finds wrong or right. I mean, he remains consistent on it regardless of the position that wins at the end of the day. You can always trust the Right Honourable Speaker Bagbin to remain, stuck to his convictions when he is very certain about something. So clearly, I am not surprised that he's repeating this point that he has made many times, even before the Office of Special Prosecutor was set up. Many at the time, I know, agreed with him. In fact, I was one of the people who also was persuaded by the argument that we could get better than set up an Office of Special Prosecutor. For example, I am persuaded more by the argument that we may have to revise our constitution to separate the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice, because clearly the Minister of Justice is supposed to be the President's, that's the executive's advisor on, judicial, or if you like.
The Attorney General.
Is it
They're supposed to advise government, the executive,
Yes.
and all of that.
No,
then the Minister of Justice would then, like he mentioned, focus on justice, so to speak, without any coloring, regardless of. I mean, it could be twisted around, but in many places, the AG is on the executive.
The minister is supposed to be a member of the executive.
Right.
The minister, because it's appointed by the president. But when you do that separation, then the Attorney General becomes the special prosecutor, so to speak.
Okay.
And I have been watching the prosecutions that.
Maybe it's in the semantics, it's in the title, but you go ahead.
Yes. I've been watching a number of cases, and I don't know this lady, Yvonne Obuabisa. Mm-hmm. She's one of the deputy prosecutors at the Attorney General's office. But I admire her consistency and her commitment to get, judgments in the favor of government in many of the cases that I have followed. And I want to believe that she is not really influenced that much politically. I want to believe. Because I see that some of the cases that you find her prosecuting and even securing judgments, you will think that they have some political impacts. But somehow maybe the Attorney General and Minister of Justice either find her so strong, so competent, or is supporting her, and for that reason is supporting her. But I'm saying where we have a situation where the two offices are separated, and you have somebody who is determined to do right and to ensure that people are held accountable to the law, you will not need a special prosecutor office, But that was the argument that was defeated, and the whole idea of setting up a special prosecutor, in my view, was aimed at achieving something other than what we all expected. And things that have happened since it was set up bears me out in my conviction that the office was set up for an agenda other than what we all expected.
Some have said that this entire enterprise was to create some appearance of fighting corruption without actually even touching the
That's
tail.
what I'm saying.
Hold on, even touching the tail of the dragon called corruption. And we've also seen, Collins, how the indexes rating corruption, real or perceived, have put us in a very bad light. So then you ask yourself, so it should show somewhere, right?
So that's the point I'm making, that I think that the people who promoted the setting up of this office had a different idea of what they wanted the office to achieve. And that was not known to all of us, because we all have very high expectations of that office. Civil society had high expectations of that office when it was set up. Then when Martin Amidu was appointed, the expectations even went out of the roof. I mean, people thought that this was the way to go. But you see, when you look back and you listen to Martin Amidu's frustrations, you begin to wonder if indeed the aim for setting up that office was in sync with the aim of civil society organizations and Ghanaians in general. Look, Martin Amidu's troubles, so to speak, got to the head when he touched the finance minister. The finance minister who is known by all to be the darling of the president. Despite opposition from even members of parliament from the NPP side, he remains in office. When he touched him, his trouble started, leading to his resignation from that office. Remember Domolevo. Domolevo's trouble started when he touched Osafo Mafo, the special advisor to the president. You know, and Kise Jabin, Cecilia Dapa, if you look at the love letter that was exchanged between Cecilia Dapa and the president.
Interesting how you couch
you will understand.
Interesting how you couch it as a love letter.
It was. I mean, because it wasn't an official, it wasn't official language.
But that's not stopped the special prosecutor from continuing.
It hasn't, but I'm saying that then when you find this pattern, it's difficult for you to ignore it. Just after going after Cecilia Dapa, you have the special prosecutor now mounting the platform, the media platform, to tell us of the difficulties and the frustrations.
So the question, back to the question. So has the office lived up to expectation? We're expending taxpayers' money on it. If not, what do we do? Should we scrap this?
So what I'm saying is that
say adios to this
whose expectation? That's
enterprise.
Whose expectation was are we using to judge? I believe that the expectation of those who promoted the setting up of this office was that the office will be used, one, to tick a box, like you said, to create the appearance of a commitment to the fight against corruption, and two, to go after political opponents. And so if you are using that yardstick, you will say it has not lived up to expectation. And perhaps that is why it is getting frustrated.
But in terms of
that's why the occupants of that
political
office,
opponents, Martin Amidu didn't do that, unless you have proof to that.
Particular one.
This current one is not doing that.
Listen to me well.
No, I'm just saying, you are saying it was one of the metrics, and I'm saying that at least singling out that metric.
You don't get me. You don't get me. You don't get that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that if you are using what I believe was the expectation of those who set up this.
Okay, so they had wanted the
president. Yes, I'm saying that based on things that have happened, I'm beginning to think that it was set up, one, to tick a box that we are committed to fight against corruption, and two, to use it to prosecute political opponents. And because that hasn't happened, the occupants of that office are complaining of frustrations. And by that extension,
so
I can say that it has not lived up to the expectation of the promoters of that office. It hasn't.
All right.
Now, on the other hand, I think that the office has been set up, and it can still be useful if we realign, the mindset and the thinking of those in government to understand that this office is to serve us all and to ensure that corruption is a high-risk enterprise, and it should not, choose between political parties, political party affiliations or religious affiliations when it comes to applying the law against people who fall foul of it. With that mindset, I think that the office can still live up to the expectations that we all have of it.
All right. Let me, interesting message coming through. Ando Stephen, on the back of what we had discussed earlier. Even if I had my MP's number, I had called him for several times, but he said nothing to me till I lost my admission. But I've applied to 2 schools and I've gained an admission for 1, but 1 is yet to come. Does the University of Health and Allied Sciences, I am pleading with you, Daddy, to help me. I just found it interesting. And then someone responds, pleading for what? So, yes, a real situation. I mean, I want to believe it is true. But on the other hand, is it the MP who has to foot the bill? You see, these are the
No, you see, send it up to us directly.
Yeah, sort of, like, in a way.
I'm just asking if it's to any of us. He said he's been calling. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'm not sure because he's not mentioned which one.
Okay.
And even if he mentioned, I wouldn't state. I would probably tell you after the show. But anyway, let's move this conversation.
Well, but
forward.
you have no idea. I mean, I say that members of parliament are like ATM machines, and they are SOS service providers. You know,
you have no idea. Even
that's the mindset
for those of us who are not in politics.
Exactly, in public life.
Who sit here?
Yep.
It would shock you
The demands and the
the number of people every week who feel he's in a nice suit, he's sitting here, with no idea of my personal circumstances. And I'm telling you, someone reaches out to you and sends you a message that, Charlie, my 2 kids and my wife, one of them is sick. We've not eaten. Can you even send us something for and one more? I'm telling you, this is a real life situation.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's
we get that.
And Charlie, they have no idea, but this country, anyway. Let's get into the conversation on the anti-gay bill. The name is long, so we all stick to anti-gay
even though it's not an
bill.
anti-gay bill.
No, that's even though it is not.
Yeah.
But what is the appropriate punishment for LGBTQ sex, so to speak? That got both of your sides in quite some engagements yesterday. Sometimes we watch you from this end and we have a good laugh because some of your antics in Parliament. But anyway, what do you make of the situation? Ursula Owusu-Ekufo also took the floor and said a number of things. And indeed, there are some things we have to be careful about. There are heterosexual partners who may be using sex toys and all of that. And this is a very adult conversation, who may be doing certain things in the heterosexual context. When you read our constitution and even the criminal code on unnatural carnal knowledge and the rest. I mean, where do you sit on this and how far is too far, Collins?
Well, myself, I enjoyed the debate yesterday. I was seated at the back. I had a committee meeting, and so I was just shuffling in and out. And I enjoyed the debate, especially the point that Madam Ursula made. Got me thinking. Do you also punish or criminalize 2 straight adults, man and a wife, straight, using sex toys to enhance their sexual life, pleasure? Do you criminalize that also? And that is the beauty of Parliament when it gets to consideration stages, and then everybody brings his or her views and all that. So I enjoyed it. I'm sure as we move on, by the time we are done with this particular bill, I'm sure we are going to fine-tune it to the extent where Ghanaians and both sides of the political divide will have a very smooth and very good act that will speak to the reasons why we want to do this. First of all, I'm for the bill. I don't have any problem with that. I generally am for the bill. Of course, I'm enjoying what is going on, bits and pieces, and fine-tuning here and there. On the punishment aspect, I think, honest, I think it should be more reformative. The punishment should be more reformative rather than too many custodial sentences, I think...
Already our prison system is a mess.
Yeah, so I think it should be more reformative.
Have you read the Bishops' Conference, what it has said? It talks about the fact that, yes, this biblically is sinful, but the people themselves ought to be treated with a certain dignity and all of that, while we recognize that the act, when conducted, is sinful, but the people themselves. And that has always been my approach, I know people who may express certain sentiments. The fact that I do doesn't mean I'll victimize them or denigrate them in any way, because they are human. And there's also the saying that the saint was once a sinner. And in fact, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. You get it, even if you want to look at it in that very context. You get it. But then the other hand of what we represent culturally, morally, is also on the line. How do we find?
So as I said, I'll tilt to a more reformative punishment when they are caught, as it were. I mean, the process should be how to sensitize them and encourage them, let them know the medical implications of what they are doing and all that, and try to.
And those are real points.
Yes,
medical implications.
Yes.
Even on our health system.
Yes, and try to reform their thinking and to bring them back into our culturally accepted norms, rather than, I mean, if you take a gay person to prison for 2-3 years without actually changing the mindset, what happens in prison may be worse.
Yeah, true. Because we know some of them actually pick up those habits from prison.
Maybe worse. So if the whole punishment is to just catch the person, drop you in the prison for 2-3 years, and think that the person will come out after 4 years and be reformed, you may be joking.
So rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation.
Do you have any concept of how we can go about it?
There are a lot of, I've seen a lot of reform centers around. Last I was watching a documentary where supposedly mad person was taken to a reform center, and the person has come out very nicely after 6 to 8 months. So I think the punishment, as we draft this particular bill into an act, we should try to have the punishment to be more reformative rather than the custodial sentence. Even if you have a custodial sentence, the question is, do you have good facilities within our prison services that will be tailored at reforming the person while the person is in custodial sentence? These are the things maybe we should be discussing.
So you think it's a good bill?
It's a good bill. I don't have a problem.
But in terms of the custodial sentence, we should take a second look at that.
We should protect our culture. Okay. Culture is a very, very important thing.
Right.
This is who we are. Yeah. I mean, I'm married. I have kids. When I get home and I see my kids, I am excited about it, and that is the nature, that's the natural thing. I mean, a man, a woman come together, give birth, that is the natural thing, But of course, we all talk about human rights. I have my right to do this, I have my right. Yes, you all have our rights, but those rights should be situated within a cultural context. You get a point I'm making. Just as you go elsewhere, and polygamy is unlawful. Yeah. In their cultural sense, they believe that a man should be married to just one woman. They are okay with it. Yeah. But I can't see why you want to dictate to us how we also groom or manage our cultural setting.
Recently, we heard the American ambassador suggest
that is where I have an issue.
Getting business to Ghana would be a problem because of our stance. But we've seen what has happened to Uganda. I mean, these are things that we must take into proper perspective. And I feel sometimes it is because we've also not managed our resources ourselves economically well, because people always point to the fact that why do they not go to the Saudi Arabias and others and go and paint this picture? And they never bring those issues up. When the recent World Cup was held there were laws about drinking and all of that. They had to abide by them. I mean, there was a bit of a bend. There were specific places people could go to and get alcohol. But even the English fans, who are known for, they had to play,
of course,
by the rules. You get it. So in a way, to some extent, it is about. But you look at the Ugandan case and the fact that while there may be some excesses in there, if you look at some aspects of it, there may be some palpable excesses. But where the World Bank is saying, okay, we are not disbursing any further funds to you on this trajectory because of that. When you say on your website, your claim is that you accept all manner of whatever, then it tells you that there is more equality than other equality.
Yeah, but that is where I have a challenge with our
Bretton Woods institutions and others.
Development partners. I mean, you are in the UK. We all travel to the UK. Suhuyini is a Muslim. Under his cultural belief, he can get married to
up to four.
Up to four.
Right.
Suhuyini wants to travel to the UK with his family. Would they allow Suhuyini to go with his 2 wives to the UK when they also believe that you can't do polygamy? If you are not going to allow Suhuyini to come to, and this is just a hypothetical case, to come to the UK for holidays with his 2 wives, but you feel very strongly that Suhuyini should allow you to bring in 2 of your men who are gay into Ghana, that is a problem.
Let me. Interesting points you're making. Suhuyini.
So I believe that they should just respect our culture. Our culture is that, yes, this is what we want. We are not saying that when you are gay, we are going to put you in jail. Our point is that we do not appreciate that two gentlemen having sex. We don't appreciate that. And that per our rules, if you do that, you are going against our culture. We don't intend to criminalize you, but we have a way of reforming you and making you understand that this is where we are and this is what we believe in.
In the meantime, there's a certain Angel Maxine, who used to be Maxwell something, someone I've interviewed before, transgender, and she is saying, so I'm using her, she is saying...
She identifies as she.
Yes, yes. And she is saying that she's going to expose some of you members of parliament who are dabbling in all of this, yet you are hiding behind this bill and all of that. Are you quaking in your boots already?
They're waiting for it.
You know, first of all, you know, the reference you made to what the U.S. ambassador said should be considered very offensive. And at the same time, it should be seen as a challenge to us Africans. And I like the point that you made about how they tolerate other nations when they are asked to comport themselves in a certain way to show respect to their way of life, like the Qatarians, Qatar, the Arabians and others. They don't tell them what they tell us. And that is why we must find what they tell us offensive. But at the same time, we must find it a challenge so that we can also build our economies and our countries to a point where we'll be deserving of their respect. Same respect that they accord to this Gulf.
And if I may just chip in this, sometimes they will make an exception, but then again, they stick to what they believe. You know, in the Cristiano Ronaldo case, he's not married. Yeah. The girl is technically his girlfriend. They had to make special concessions for him.
I agree.
To be able to be in Saudi Arabia. And it's a special dispensation just for him because he's not married to the woman.
Yeah. And you see, I have said that Ghanaians are very tolerant people. Over the years, we have lived with the Kojo, what do we call them?
BCS.
Kojo BCS. We have lived with the Pado, I mean, in Dagbani, that's how they were referred to, without any problems. We know people in our communities who have the tendency to be gay. We've lived with it all these years, but we have always lived with it as a deviation and not as a normal way of life. Okay. And so when people with their bloated egos come to us and want to insist that we regularize it and accept it as a normal way of life, then, in my view, they actually put the Kojo BCS in danger because then they begin to aggravate the opposition to that way of life, a life that we have always lived with and accepted. And look, let us be clear on one thing. There is no sexual orientation that has not been legislated on. Some people say, why do you have to legislate on people's sexual preferences? Look, if you look at the criminal code, section 29, clearly, even heterosexual sex is legislated on. You have a number of sexual offenses, like rape, like defilement, like incest. Imagine, when incest.
Yeah.
Incest.
I think even bestiality.
Yes.
Everything is
Incest is actually sexual intercourse between people with the same blood relation. It doesn't matter if they are
specifies
adults. Wait, the point I'm making is that it doesn't matter if they are adults. It doesn't matter if it is by their consent. We have still legislated it to be a crime that can take people to prison between 5 years to 25 years. That's heterosexual sex. We have legislated on that. It doesn't matter if they choose to sleep with each other, even though they are related. We have said that is wrong, and it's in the law. So why do we have a problem when it comes to this other sexual arrangement, and we say that we want to legislate how that also operates, why should that be a problem? And so if you look at the debate yesterday, I wasn't in Parliament yesterday because I was in the constituency, like I said. But I have spoken to my colleagues. I've spoken to Sam George and others. And the idea behind that provision, in fact, the recommendation was that it should be a maximum of 3 to 5 years. And that's even less than 5 to 25 years as contained in incest.
Right.
Are you getting it? But the committee thought that it should be a maximum of 3 years, but they did not provide a minimum ceiling.
Do you agree that there should be some tweaking to ensure that maybe certain things like with the sex toys and all of that, so that people are not unwittingly drawn into the
I am enjoying. I'm enjoying
very,
the
very
discussion.
quickly.
Yes, I'm enjoying this discussion, and maybe sometimes these are the discussions the public don't follow, and they don't understand that Parliament sometimes or mostly come together to pass laws in the interest of this country. I mean, who would have thought that Sam George and the majority leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, would have been on the same side on a matter. On a matter, yeah. But you see, on the floor, the information I get is that they were arguing in favor of the same point.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the passage of laws in the House, the consideration stage is an interesting stage.
Very interesting.
Because at that point, members can speak more than once, and members can disagree with their own views, party member and all of that. And that is the beauty of legislation in the House.
The conversation is so enjoyable. I can tell from social media and the comments coming through that we could do this for another hour and still go on. But at some point we must wrap.
I just want to make that point again, that look, this notion that it is wrong for us to be legislating people's sexual preferences must be discarded, because even heterosexual sexual relationship, we have legislated upon.
Points made on.
I mean, and carnal knowledge, incest, defilement, they are all laws that are prosecutable and that can send people to jail for between 5 to 25 years.
I don't know whether this is the same Jatto
Why should this be different?
I know, but Baba Abraham Jatto Kallio, it's a bit of a lengthy one. I'll try to shorten. It says, this discussion is of high public interest, corrupting, soliciting for corruption, and giving and receiving corrupt items. Honorable Suhuyini has made a fantastic point. The transparency in all we do as a society. But from their interventions, both MPs, they seem to have thrown in the towel. If they are sincere with their calls for sanitizing our social, religious, and political lives, they should show it in Parliament and in their public discourses. One area I believe they should all join hands to push forward is the campaign to have all Ghanaians come into compliance with the Ghana card and identification of individuals. When we are all identifiable in the digital space and our contributions to political, civil, and religious organizations can be easily tracked, then we can win the transparency fight. It goes on and on, but unfortunately,
we have not thrown
it's too long for me to read everything.
Like I said, we are just being practical.
Right.
It is.
So these are your final comments. 20 seconds. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I don't agree. I agree with the points that he has raised.
Right.
And except that if he thinks that we sound like we have thrown in the towel.
You've not thrown in the towel.
That's not.
Collins, have you thrown in the towel?
Not at all. For me,
have you thrown in the towel?
Not
at all. It's just what it is.
Yes.
A practical.
A luta continua against corruption.
All right. Absolutely. I'm a member of the Parliamentarians Against Corruption, APNAC.
Right.
And it is something we will continue to fight to ensure that we
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the conversation this morning. And I want to appreciate how you've comported yourselves. I am very grateful that you've been this.
If you are not
Mr. Sometimes it gets fiery. He says, did you hear him? He says, if you are not Mr.
When I meet Suhuyini in school, it's Mutala who has been disturbing me.
Anyway, so those who joined us for this belt of the conversation on everything in Parliament and beyond, Alhassan Suhuyini is Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Collins Adomako-Mensah is Member of Parliament for Ifija Kwabre North. We have some very, very important conversations still coming your way on the AM show. You want to stay for that. We're talking about pesticide risk reduction and that campaign. We'll bring you details of that, as we also tell you about a campaign that aims to promote a healthy and nutritious lifestyle through baking with, guess what, soya flour. All those conversations still to come on the AM show. We'll be right back.